flipping the House in 2018. We broke 150 years of Republican hegemony in Delaware County and Chester County, Pennsylvania. And when I say hegemony, I mean not a single Democrat had held a county row office in those counties in 150 years. Those seats matter for making fair elections when we get to flipping the House in 2018, having fair poll workers. So every election that you adopt matters, and it all builds to the 2018 strategy. So that's my update from Virginia. We're not done with the recounts yet. It's still possible. But know that the work that you do really, really matters.
2 questions.
Yeah.
What do they need to take the House back?
What we need to take the House back is all of it.
All 4?
They need, well, no, of the 4, they need to take, to get to an even split, they need to take 1 more. And to get to taking it in full, in majority, we need 2. It's really unlikely we get 2. It's really unlikely.
And what would the general, I'm from Virginia.
Yeah.
I think I follow it closely. What was the general feeling? I've been talking to friends of mine that participated in Virginia, so what was your feeling? What were the keys to success other than
The grassroots.
and what were the issues that were associated with it? It's one thing, it is grassroots, but what were the issues that resonated?
It wasn't about issues so much. It was healthcare, of course, but remember, issues are a proxy for values. What voters want to see and hear from us in order to win is they want to know that we're values aligned. Where the grassroots is so powerful is that we help communicate our values by talking about the issues that align with the things that we care about. So I always tell people, don't get too stuck on the facts and the nuts and bolts. Just make sure that you have a presence and really engage in those conversations, because all conversations are valuable when you're an undecided voter.
And what were the values? I mean, if you don't have,
I'm
afraid we're gonna have to cut it off because we're really on a
I'm
tight
literally
schedule.
just filling time until she's ready to go.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're really late.
Well,
The house.
The house. We got to get to the house. So I'm not going to preach to the choir here. I'm going to assume that because you're sitting in this room, you get why the house is important. Okay. I will put in 2 words about the Senate because some people are not clear why we're not focused on the Senate. Heck, we need 24 House seats. We only need 3 Senate seats, right? Why wouldn't we focus on that? Couple of reasons. One, just the makeup of the electoral season this year, that we are defending 25 Democratic seats in the Senate. There are only 9 Republican seats even up, and only 2 of those are really even considered competitive. Now that we've got this Doug Jones pedophilia situation going on, we might actually have a possible inkling into Alabama, but that's a long shot, and then maybe the Senate is in play. But for right now, our path of least resistance is the House of Representatives. It costs less than a Senate seat, and also all the kinds of things that we plan on doing, all the grassroots activism, that's much more impactful in a race that only costs $1.3 million than one that costs $8 or $10 million. So for all those reasons, we're focusing on the House. And then the next question that comes up in this is, well, how should we play this? Do we want to defend our Democratic seats, or do we want to go after Republican seats? If you look at what happened in Virginia, in Washington, in New Jersey, you see that the tide is with the Democrats. Finally, the country has woken up and said, our values are being attacked, our personal liberties are being attacked, our health care is being attacked. Now we've got momentum. So rather than play defense, we have to play offense. So I'm telling you all this to give you a preamble into how you go and pick your candidates to support. Because as I said this morning, it's a daunting task. I downloaded the FEC filings. 2,600 people are running for House. 2,600 people. But you can cull it down pretty darn fast. First, you've got to pick which districts you want to play. So let's see if I can do this. All right. So we know that there are 435 seats, right? We're going to look only at the Republican seats. That gets us down to 239 seats. Then we have to consider which of these seats do we think are winnable. There are a lot of different ways you can play this. We didn't think any of the congressional seats that came up in the special elections we had a prayer in, right? And we actually didn't end up winning not a one of them, unfortunately, but we came within a hair's breadth on so many. And if we had just a little bit more time, a little bit more participation, we would have gotten there. That being said, let's focus in on the ones that are most winnable. So there is a number out there that gets calculated called the partisan voting index. I'm sure a lot of you, I see a lot of head shaking. It's an easy metric to use. All it is they take the average of either a Trump-Clinton or an Obama-Romney win. They take those margins that a district had, so how much one voted for Clinton or for Trump, and they average them together and they come up with a number. So they'll quote it as R plus, so the Republican won by 3 points, the Republican won by 23 points, or the Democrat did. And so what we say is that if it has a partisan voting index of less than 15 points for the Republican, then it's considered in play. To give you some perspective, when the DCCC came out with their numbers at the beginning, when they first came out with their list, they were only looking at districts with the partisan voting index was less than 7. They were writing off other districts. Since then, they've actually put out a much larger list. Their latest one came out a few days ago, and now actually they are, like we had already decided long ago, their district list has expanded, and now they're looking at PVIs 12, 13, 14 as well. So, but all this is to say that if you want to look at districts that we consider winnable, if you look at those 239, only 153 are not ruby red. So, next thing to do, all right, well, you've got a district that could be considered theoretically in play, but it's not going to be in play unless there's a viable candidate there, right? So we have to look at who would be viable. You think it's a long time out till the election, but it's really not. Most of the experts that I've read say that if you haven't declared and have a good chunk of money in your coffers already, you're not going to get there. There are absolutely some exceptions to this, and we're seeing some of them come out now, but generally that seems to be the rule that's in place. So we looked at districts where there was at least $100,000 in the game, which actually isn't very much at this point. And if you take that, your 153 drops down to 79. So we're getting there. And then a lot of people say, well, I don't want to get involved yet because who knows who's going to win. And certainly in some of these districts, like California 39 or New York 19, where there are 7 candidates declared and there are multiple candidates that have raised over $500,000, that's probably a hard race to get involved in and not necessarily going to be the incremental value that you as an outside group can provide. So better to turn your resources to groups, or excuse me, to districts that are getting less relative play. So districts where it's a lower dollar, so some of the more rural districts out in the Midwest, for instance. Districts where there isn't all the commotion. Think of John Ossoff. You know, our relative add to a John Ossoff campaign is very, very minimal compared to what we could have done, for instance, with Archie Parnell's campaign in South Carolina. Much better to have spent the time with Archie Parnell. Okay, so if you do it, and I did it with my spreadsheet, if you look at where there's and I guess I should say, front-runner status. There are a certain number of races out there where there is already a clear front-runner. And it's not a definite thing, and it's really hard to claim it. But basically, all I did was I did a search, and if there's a candidate that has got at least 2/3 of the money so far, I said, you know, that's enough to be a front-runner. Mm-hmm. And that cuts down your numbers real fast. And so I get 27 names of front runners. And if you take this handout here, this handout, last page here, it looks like this. These are the 27. There's some interesting names on this. If you don't have one, come up. Feel free to cut here. You can pass these back. Here, okay, here. So again, let me review what this list is. This is a list of districts with an incumbent who is a Republican, where the partisan voting index is less than 15. In fact, on this list, everybody is less than 11. Partisan voting index is right here. And in addition to that, there is a front runner. And I actually put the front runner name right here. If a front runner has received an endorsement from a couple of known groups, I looked at Emily's list and a great group that actually Seth Moulton has been a part of, Vote Vets. If they've received Vote Vets, if they've received one of those endorsements, their names is bolded here. I also happen to put these things just to make a point on ideology. Some groups really are interested in picking an issue-based campaign. If you look, I just picked guns, how they voted on the AHCA, environment, their environmental rating, and their pro-choice rating by Planned Parenthood. And I put all those numbers there. There is not a single Republican on this list with a Planned Parenthood rating greater than 1.9. An environmental rating, there's a guy with, Ryan Costello in Pennsylvania has an environmental rating of 4 out of 10. Guns are all 1s or 0s. And there's a couple of votes that they got to pass on for the AHCA. But basically you can support any one of these Republicans and feel like you're working for the progressive cause. Progressive cause.
You said support any Republican.
I said Republican?
But we got you.
So I wanted to give you this list. On the back here are all the endorsements. So if you don't like to, I'm a numbers person. I'm a former quant. I like to run spreadsheets. You can also go on and see who other groups who have really done research into these candidates have done. Emily's list, they are primarily focused on female candidates, but they have found some awesome, absolutely awesome female candidates to support. Their list is here. Vote Vets, all for former, for vets who are running for office. Again, there's an impressive list there. However you want to do it, you can do that. I also want to say that if you want to dive deeper into the numbers, my contact information is on the handouts, and I'm happy to send out some of the analysis, some of the spreadsheets, if you want to do that. Attached to here are some deeper analyses of some interesting campaigns. The one I want to point out is your friend and mine, Paul Ryan's seat. His actually comes up as a very viable, flippable district. It happens to be that the guy's got upward, last time he had 24 million, right now he's up to 12 million in PAC money that he's got behind him. But there's a guy, Randy Bryce, who has already raised 1.4 million. He's coming into town next week, and there is a fundraiser happening in Arlington next week if you want to have a beer with the guy. But he put out this absolutely great video that has gone viral. It's a flippable seat. And imagine if Paul Ryan has to come back to his district and spend all that money right there in Wisconsin, and that means he doesn't get to give it out to all these other races. That was his plan earlier on. So it's a compelling one to look at. Another person who's coming into town is Angie Craig. She's in the Minnesota 2nd District. Jason Lewis's seat, her profile is here. Basically, she again is she's actually here. She's not yet a front runner. She was the candidate who ran last time and was narrowly defeated. She just recently declared again. So she does not have any money listed here. There is another guy in the race, Jeff Erdman, who is also a very credible candidate. So it's a great district to look at, but you might want to look at both of those candidates. But Angie Craig is going to be here next week.
What Minnesota city or town would we recognize from that district?
Oh my God, now you've
Geographically.
I don't know, does anybody know that, Minnesota
Angie
too?
Craig, Minnesota too.
Minnesota too, yeah. what
It's
district?
outside of Minneapolis. It's not quite the city, but it's like next to Minneapolis.
Is that one of those crazy ones?
No.
Northwest?
It's concentrated in the suburbs.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like MN3 is sort of the Minnetonka, Hopkins, Edina, MN2 is sort of right next to that. So it's more suburban.
And the other two that I'm going to point out is Kentucky 6,
Yeah.
which is Andy Barcy, and you've got to go check the video of Amy McGrath.
Yeah. Oh, that was amazing.
I'm in love. She's coming into town as well, okay? And the last district that the last one that I'm gonna point out, because it's regional, is Maine. Maine, the second district in Maine, there's a horse race going on there. I count, is it nine declared candidates there. There's definitely not a front runner yet. There is one candidate that has received the Vote Bets endorsement. His name is Jared Golden. I haven't done a lot of personal research into him, but it's definitely, because it's a more local district, it's one probably worthy of a look. So I've already probably taken up too much time. I have a great pleasure of introducing Carrie Dogan, who's going to talk to you about Sister District's great work, more down ballot. And we can all thank Sister District, really, for a lot of their great work that they did in Virginia and getting us involved in that Virginia race. So.
All right, well, I find it hard to follow like a really good cause where you should put all your time and money with another great cause about where you should put your time and money. So Sister District, let me just give you a quick overview of what we do. We're really focused on state houses, so state races, which I will say I'm a total convert. I was so much more of a national political junkie, and most Democrats have been, and so that's been really the problem. I think Republicans caught on to this many years ago and have been just putting so much money for state houses, and you'll see the result of that in a second. So Sister District is all about focusing on the state level. They're kind of get tempted to focus on the congressional races, but I think they're really going to stay focused at the state level, and it worked in Virginia. So we're going to keep on that hunt. So why state races? This map, I just was like floored when I saw it. So 26 states have Republican-led state house or two, and a Republican governor. So the trifecta, it's 26 states, and only 6 blue states look like that. So, this is just huge numbers. I think most people, including myself, are pretty much asleep to for a long time. 68 out of 99 state legislatures and 34 Republicans, including even in Massachusetts, are Republicans. So, and this isn't by coincidence. This is from a focused effort by Republicans, and again, Democrats will continue to focus more at the national level, and things really changed. So why does looking back on this, so we have 2 hopefully that'll turn blue. Washington after last week, and Virginia we'll see. It might be purple, but hopefully it'll turn blue with these recounts. So that's good news. But why the state races? So first of all, the thing that is on top of everyone's mind now is redistricting. So in most, I think 37 states, the state legislatures drive the redistricting. So if they're all in Republican hands, then we know what that's going to turn out like. Also, the state laws just have a huge impact on daily life. Like, this is something I think I didn't fully appreciate. When we had one of our Virginia candidates call in for a fundraiser we had at my house a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the vetoes that they had over some of the proposals. I mean, these are huge differences to the way of life. Like, one of them was making it so bazookas were not legal in Virginia. So there are like major impacts on the quality of life in those states. And then also there's a lot of organizations that take those blueprints of the state laws in Virginia or Texas or wherever else and then spread them to all these other states. So like the transgender bathroom law. So if it does really well in one state, if it gets through in one state, then it quickly can be a domino effect across other states. And then that becomes a blueprint for the national law. In some ways good, like with, I guess, Romney Care. And then in other ways, like the transgender bathroom, not such good ways. So, those are really important reasons to focus at the state level. And then lastly, a lot of the talent. So a lot of the folks that Michelle just talked about, I'm sure, come from the state legislatures. I think half of the U.S. presidents have have held state offices in the past. So it's partially just like a breeding ground for good talent, and it's a bad situation to be in when you have kind of a dearth of talent, and that's really starting to change. And also, just to really hit the point home here, that this is a concerted effort by Republicans, and we need to match or beat it. Republicans flipped 19 legislative bodies to Republican control in 2010 after they came up with this strategy. And over the tenure of Obama's years, almost 1,000 legislative seats flipped. So this is not like minor trends changing over time. This is a huge, huge difference. So this convinced me, and I will say there's a lot of other reasons, I think, to focus on state races, just more from a personal fulfillment standpoint. When a state race is won or lost by 12 votes, I think is one of the recounts, 12 votes different. Down to 9, all right, getting closer.
Till he gets closer.
You really feel like your efforts really mattered. And I will say, to your question about what values were people voting on, I did a lot of phone banking, and we didn't get into almost any conversations about policy or values. It was getting out the vote. It was people who said, oh, Trump is crazy, I'm definitely voting Democrat if I vote. I'm like, you have to vote, you have to vote. Like, this really matters. And I would say, in the last election, only 29% of Virginians actually voted in their state elections. And really? Like, wow. And yeah, our other candidate won by 300 votes the last time. So that really motivates people. I mean, I had somebody who I was getting her and her mother a van ride because they didn't have any way to get to the polling station. So these things really come down to small numbers that, as much as voting should always matter, I think when you start talking about numbers in the tens or the hundreds, people really start realizing how important it is in their local district. And as a volunteer, that felt really good use of time. So, Sister District was really only born a year ago. I think Rita Bosworth, who was one of the founders, woke up after Election Day feeling as horrible as the rest of us did and wanted to do something about it, and felt like when you're in a blue state, how do you put all of your energy towards something that feels fruitful? And like I was joking earlier, but I was so sick of calling Elizabeth Warren's office saying, it's great that she's standing by us, thank you, keep fighting, and I couldn't do that anymore. So this felt like a good way to take energy in a blue state and put it towards something that could help not just these other states, but also the overall country. And so their goal was to adopt races. They did a lot of similar analysis that Michelle was talking about. We didn't have the bandwidth on our teams to really do that analysis, so we wanted somebody else to assign us a race and go, let us go gangbusters against that race. So in our group, we had 2 candidates in Virginia, but overall over the last year they picked 15 candidates, and they've won 14, hopefully 15 if that 9 counts. That 9 votes continues to shrink. So that's an amazing, and these weren't easy races. They didn't pick the easy races. I think maybe 3 of them were retaining seats. All the others were flips. So these were tough and sometimes really tough, and they were discouraged actually from picking some of these races, but they went for it and it really worked. So you can just see the numbers here. I mean, we made tons of phone calls. We did postcarding. We just started texting. We did fundraisers. They're small dollar fundraisers, so you can get a lot of people to come and give $20. And when you're giving away free alcohol, free entertainment, they'll come and we raised many thousands of dollars doing that. So I thought it was really rewarding. And then everybody's got a little bit of skin in the game. Like I joke with all my friends who I sort of aren't political, and I pressured them to come to my fundraiser. And then they were like so excited on Wednesday. They felt like they had helped in some way. So that's made it really rewarding as well. And again, like it's just these small efforts that go a long way when you have thousands of people across the country doing them. So where are we going from here? We're in a little bit of a lull right now with the elections finishing last week. We're waiting for headquarters to kind of do the crunching and tell us what races they're going to assign to us going into next year. In 2017, they waited till post-primary. I don't think we're going to have the luxury to do that, so I think they'll be doing a lot of the same analysis on the state level that Michelle talked about. We're kind of using our teams. We have a good structure right now in terms of we have regular hosts once a month who have people over to do activities. And these are not like talk parties, which we started with. These are, you come, you write postcards, you come, you do phone banking. So we're going to continue with those. We're doing some kind of non-official sister district like Doug Jones the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully in early 2018 we'll have our new candidates to focus on. And they're really trying to focus on these states where flipping the state house, where we have an opportunity to really flip the state house, and obviously we've shown that that's very doable. We also think they might assign us some special elections and interim as they work through so the analysis. The other thing we're just trying to do, both at a local and national level, is find more leadership volunteers. So we have plenty of room for anybody who wants to spend an hour a month, or 5 hours a month, or 25 hours a month. But we really need a few more leaders across the state who can help us with, whether it's hosting, like I host something at my house once a month where we just invite people over to come and do the activities. People who want to help us with, data management, who want to help us with social media presence. There's lots of roles that, depending on your interest and your background, that you can help with, and we really need to kind of build up that core. We have an awesome team. Michelle Ottaviano, who was here a few minutes ago, she's been just a fantastic leader in Massachusetts, but we need like 10 more of Michelle's. So we're trying to focus some of our attention in the coming months on building that foundation. So as we scale and go through the next year, and again, the marathon, the next 5 years, we have the right organization in place. So we'd love to have you guys involved. Feel free to reach out to any of us, and after I'm around all afternoon, and then if you go onto our website and give us your information, one of the captains will reach out to you and figure out what role you can play in driving the success going forward. Any questions? Yes.
Is Sister District focusing on any Massachusetts races?
Not right now, we're not. So a lot of people ask, like, why are you focusing on a state? There's still a lot of chances within Massachusetts. I think that's definitely true, but not through this model. This is really focusing on out of state. But hopefully we'll get assignments that are closer to home than Virginia this year. We're hoping on New Hampshire or Maine, so we can do more canvassing. We did have a few teams that went down to Virginia and had a great time. They felt like it was so energizing, but that's not very easy for most people to go and do. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Obedience. And the mission of my organization is to reduce the cost of campaigns in government. Simple. Social media is extraordinarily affordable for the level of engagement and human interaction that it provides. It is core to figuring out how we get out of a world of raising $53 million for the John Ossoffs of the world. People ask me all the time, why didn't John win? I got 2 answers. One, he didn't live in the district. Didn't live in the district. That's a huge just a no-go right there. The second, he had a terrible social media game. It was just awful. His Facebook was outdated. He didn't use video. He didn't target. He didn't take advantage of YouTube. He had $53 million, and I'll tell you where it went. It went to TV. TV is a broadcast medium that is extraordinarily expensive. People spend 5% less time on TV of all forms today than they did 5 years ago. They spend 105% more time on social media. So that's why we're going to talk about social media and how you can be helpful to your candidates and your causes, regardless of how you want to engage as an indivisible. How can you actually push the ball forward yourselves through social media for those things that you care about? Because it's where you're going to get the absolute biggest bang for your buck in terms of relative reward for total cost. I'm with Open Progress. We did 90 races in 11 states with 30 grassroots partners. None of us exist in a universe alone. None of our candidates will be successful in a universe where we try to take credit and live alone. Our candidates will win, and we will win our causes and our races when we partner and when we collaborate and when we are generous with and share the credit with those that we do it with. This is an example of some work that we did in Virginia across all those 90 races. One of the things that we went really deep on in social is and was video. And these are just some examples of some videos that were put together by volunteer creatives, volunteer creative photographers, videographers, volunteer editors, and then we sort of took all that footage and created a marketing plan for a number of candidates and ran it. But the power of video is real because humans are wired to watch video, and social is really perfect for it. But before we go down the rabbit hole of video, let's talk about the platforms. The only 3 platforms that I'm really going to talk to you about in any context at all are Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And we're pretty much going to spend the entire time today on Facebook. Twitter, it is great for pressuring folks. It's great for generating huge amounts of movement to something, away from something. It's extraordinarily helpful in getting free, paid, kind of unpaid earned media. But it is pretty lousy at getting a voter to change his or her mind and go vote for something. So when you think about Twitter, right, like I have a real world example that's happening right now for you in Virginia. Twitter is not that important for actually getting voters to go vote. But I'll tell you what Twitter is really important for right now is Josh Cole's recount in House of Delegate 28. There's been a massive tweet storm happening to make the county board of, like the county elector for Stafford County show up and do his job and count 55 absentee ballots that he wanted to throw away. Without the power of Twitter, over and over and over again pressuring this dude, he wasn't gonna show up today. So Twitter is extremely helpful for advocating, for pressuring. It's just not that great for talking to a voter and changing anybody's minds. Instagram. So Instagram is about telling the world through pictures. I mean, it's all visual. It's photos and video. Do not forget about it, but do not, if you've got a pick and you've got a candidate that's not super sophisticated on social, don't try to get them up the Instagram mountain as your first step. It's not worth it. Facebook. This is the meat and potatoes of social. This is where everybody is, who votes regularly. It gets grayer every day. It's not where the kids live, FYI. And because it gets grayer every day, it becomes more and more important. Because the folks who regularly and routinely vote are people who, frankly, are very plugged in and resident in their communities. They're older. So Facebook is what we're going to talk about. If you want to succeed, you have to understand how to use Facebook and make it work for you. So how do you make Facebook work for you? It's all about engagement. What does Facebook want? Facebook wants you to never leave Facebook. That's what it wants. That's all it wants. It just wants you to never leave Facebook. How does it behave? It does whatever it can to make you never leave Facebook. It gives you a ridiculously cluttered homepage that none of us enjoy because it is so much visual and mental stimulation in one place. That is on purpose. That is so you do not leave. They literally don't want you to ever leave. So, what does this mean for you? Create engagement by effectively hacking its rules to your advantage. Those rules are about taking actions for your candidates and causes that actually sort of effectively push that content up and out over and over and over again, so that when someone who doesn't know how to hack the rules logs in for the day and checks their Facebook feed, suddenly the stuff you care about is popping up to the top of their feed and they're interacting with it. So there are just some very simple things that all of us can do to help people to get Facebook to work for us. In the beginning, there were posts. You all know what this looks like. You know what a post looks like. This is a post. And I live in Pennsylvania. I live in Senator Pat Toomey's world. Senator Pat Toomey. By the way, very good at social. Got real good at it in 2016. It's how he won his election. Without his social game in 2016, Pat Toomey would not have won. It is what provided him with the entire advantage in that race. What's great about this post? Well, it's a photo. Photos are a minimum. If you're helping a candidate, if you're helping your indivisible group, if you're helping a cause, don't post just a word post unless that's the purpose and it's really long, right? Like, just use photos. Humans are wired for photos. We're wired for photos, we're wired for visuals. So just always at least have a picture. Comments, this little area here. Comments are extraordinarily powerful. If all you do when you see a post for something that you care about is hit the like button, you've missed a huge opportunity. Always leave a comment. Even if it's just, yay, leave a comment. Share. When you share, do it with a purpose. Don't just be like, share to my friends. Give it a post. Tell your friends to give money. Tell your friends to like the page. Tell your friends to do something. Because when you share it in your feed, you get an opportunity to give a call to action to the people who know and trust you. So share with a purpose. Don't just share. Don't be a spammer. And if you're helping a candidate or a cause with their posts, see how this one has 812 comments? Well, I promise you, if you clicked 812 comments, you would not see 812 comments. The trolls would get hit, but that's okay. Hide your trolls. If you're helping a candidate by being a moderator on their page, if you're doing your own indivisible groups page, hide your trolls because other people won't be able to see them, but their friends will still see them. And guess what? They'll actually constantly comment to one another. And every single time somebody comments, whether everyone can see it or no one can see it, it pops your post back up to the top of people's feeds. This is why comments are so powerful.
How do you hide a troll?
A troll is somebody who
Now,
basically.
how do you hide it?
Oh, there's, when you have moderator status, if you click on comments,
Oh, yeah, moderator.
you get a little, like, there's like 3 little dots, and you can basically choose those 3 little dots, and it gives you the option to hide.
Okay.
Yeah, hide your trolls. But know that the trolls are still working for you in the background. So it's hugely powerful for James Thompson in Kansas 4. We ran most of his social for him. Hugely powerful, because we could hide all of James's trolls, but they were sitting there trolling one another, and it just meant that every time his item got popped back up to the top of people's feeds for another opportunity to see it and to comment and to review it. Finally, photo is a must. Keep your text short. Don't be me. I'm terrible at social media for myself, by the way. I'm absolutely terrible because I'm a words person. I like to write really long posts, and then my team for Open Progress is like, no, too long. If you are working with someone, keep it short. Keep it short and let them focus on the visual. So this is a post. This is the bread and butter of Facebook. Photo, comment, 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 share with a purpose. If you do those 3 things, anytime something hits your feed or anytime you're helping a candidate, you will make their social that much more powerful and that much more impactful for them. And it's free to comment. Comment out the wazoo.
So,
Yeah.
question about YouTube. So, does YouTube work the same way, vis-a-vis comments and so forth? And where does that fit in the whole?
We're gonna hold that to the very end. Because in the beginning there were posts, and then there was video. This is the actual game changer, guys. Video is the game changer. I tell my candidates, I tell everyone, if you can type it, you can say it. Stop typing. If you're a candidate, if you're someone who's advocating for a cause, stop typing. Start recording. Why? In the world of Facebook, there is a ladder of engagement. And Facebook cares very much about this ladder. At the bottom of the ladder is the way I post on my personal page with a lot of words. Facebook gives 0 cares about that. Above it are photo posts. And up here is video. Facebook, what does Facebook want? Let's go back. What does Facebook want?
Video.
For you to never leave Facebook. And what keeps you from leaving Facebook? Video. So when you think about how to get the most for free, the most reach, the most engagement, you have to be using video. So again, when you're partnering with candidates, when you're advocating for a cause, when you're wanting to get the word out across anything your indivisible group is doing, if you're not using video, if you're not strenuously advocating to your chosen cause or candidate to use video, you are doing them a disservice. And it matters because we're wired to stop and watch it. The average watch time for a video on Facebook is 6 seconds. Memorize this. Stop making 3-minute videos, please. Please. And please, don't have your candidates make 3-minute videos because no one will watch them. You gotta get the basic information out in the first 6 seconds. Number 1 thing that I made James Thompson stop doing was starting every one of his videos with, "Hi, my name is James Thompson and I'm running for Congress from Kansas 4th Congressional District." That's all 7 seconds! Later. So like by the time we got done, it was great. But like people have to practice this. So that's the other piece of it. As you advocate for this, part of your role can be that you can be a helper. You got a candidate, have them send you a bunch of draft videos. Help them practice. Don't post them. Spend a week just practicing. But they've got to get on this. They've got to get better at this. The example that we're going to talk about in a second is this wonderful woman here, Dawn Adams. Dawn Adams was one of the candidates. We worked really closely with in Virginia. And when we got to Dawn 4.5 weeks ago, Dawn hadn't put up a single homemade video. She'd done 1 professional session, and she was nervous, as everyone is in front of the camera the first time. Listen, go video yourself. You're gonna be terrible for the first 50. It's okay. You gotta practice, but now she's a pro at this. She's a pro at taking her own videos. And we're gonna talk about why it mattered so much for her. But, first there were posts, and then there were videos.
Are animated videos effective as well, or are you focusing mostly on?
Yeah, they're okay. They're just really time intensive,
Yeah.
right? So we built one for Open Progress. It's done really well. It's super adorable. I love it very much. The reality is that it took us a month to get to that video, and I can do, 50 to 100 cell phone videos in that time. So never let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. Just get people going on it.
Just a broader Facebook question. I think a lot of us, like through individual groups, are in closed groups. So a lot of the posts we're doing, we're just kind of talking to ourselves. Like, how do we think about Facebook closed forums versus?
They are lousy for your candidates, bluntly. We worked with Greg Kava in Connecticut 32 as one of the very first special elections right after 2016 in February. And when we got there, Greg's entire social plan was a private Facebook group. And we sat down and said, hey guys, he's running for public office and you can't find him on Facebook. Like, where's Greg? Well, he's in a private Facebook group. That's not gonna work. So Greg's actually a huge success story because we got him out of the private Facebook group. And then it turns out he was really fired up to talk about two things all the time on video. Betsy DeVos, everybody hates Betsy DeVos. I really hope she doesn't leave because she is literally the #1 thing to make people talk about on video on Facebook. And number 2 is he was super fired up about pay equity. This is an important lesson. You guys will read a lot of surveys and a lot of lists about issues, and it'll tell you that nobody cares about pay equity and nobody votes on pay equity. And you know what? In a survey, nobody does. But if your candidate loves to talk about it, and your candidate gets fired up about it, and your candidate is authentic about it, that is a far better experience for the voter and can sway their opinion than if you make them sound really dry and boring about what is technically the most important issue in the district. So you have to balance authenticity with what the data tell you you're supposed to talk about. The most important thing about video is that it's authentic. You and I are wired to stop and watch it, but we will only stay watching it if the person is really, is themselves. This is the YouTube generation. And so, and you may not think you're part of it, but you are. And so don't overly force a round peg into a square hole or a square peg into a round hole. If if you have a candidate or a leader of a group that loves to talk about something specific, don't necessarily just throw that off because it's quote unquote something nobody cares about. Because Greg Kava's pay equity video got watched 15,000 times. Yeah.
So how do you trade off what I call polish on the one hand, but kind of informality of authenticity on the other?
You just don't have to. Thank you for being the perfect segue into Don Adams. Because social can make all the difference. This is Don. We love Don. Don won by 326 votes. 4 days before the election, Dawn was not going to win. Much as I love her dearly, not going to win. What changed? Dawn did the work, and her audience amplified it. And what I mean by that is something very specific. I say this all the time to people. You have to field a candidate in every race, and you have to support those candidates because you don't know which race is going to break in the last week. You'll never play that game right. Dawn's race broke, and it broke for a very simple reason. The Sunday before Election Day, we caught her opponent in a very nasty lie. He claimed the endorsement of the major African-American newspaper in Richmond, Virginia, and he didn't have it. Dawn did. And 4 weeks earlier, if we'd had the Dawn Adams then, she wouldn't have been able to take advantage of it because she wouldn't have been building her social media presence with likes on her page. She wouldn't have had a built-in audience and she built that audience because she had really embraced video and that gave her more reach and more engagement that drove them back to the page. These things are a virtuous circle. But she also wouldn't have been able to take advantage of it because she wouldn't have been able to record in the backyard of her home a cell phone video that she took of herself that called him out as being a liar, and that she, as a nurse, was a member of the #1 most trusted profession in the United States. And don't we want integrity in our office? So, cell phone video goes out. We spend money on it. This part of the bar means we spent money. We put money behind it. We keep putting money behind it. We repurpose it and repurpose it and repurpose it.
What does that mean, you put money behind?
It's like an
Facebook?
ad. It's like a TV ad. You put money behind it. And by putting money behind it, Facebook puts it in your feed even though you didn't like Dawn before, but they think you might like Dawn. And you get way more reach on a video thing when you spend it because they think you're going to stop and watch the video. Because again, what does Facebook want? To never leave Facebook. And then it gets enough, it starts to build on social that the major paper in Richmond picks it up and puts it on the front page. Dawn wins by 326 votes, and she spent $108,000 to her opponent's $454,000. This is the power of social. This is why social matters. But social is not time unintensive for your candidates or for you, right? You need to comment. You need to share with a purpose. Your candidates need to take video. They need to put those videos up. They need to target them. But this is how we get out of $53 million congressional races, unfortunately. But it requires that we engage, and it requires that we activate.
So you get out of this closed group
Get
with
out
money?
if you're going to be working with as a candidate or with a candidate, right? It's very helpful in your the closed groups have a real purpose for you as as organizers, as a community, right? You want to have conversations that other people can't see. You want to be able to build in your own organization. You can certainly raise money for candidates in there. You can certainly put posts in there. I mean, certainly, like for instance, when James was running in Kansas, we would post multiple things inside the indivisible groups that were closed because they'd invited him into them. But never for a minute think that if you're helping a candidate or a cause, that they can get their optimal or maximal reach in a closed group. They can't. It's just
So how do you get out?
You have to be public. I mean, the candidate has to be very public. They have to have a public page. Your cause has to have a public page.
Just a settings thing.
Yeah.
Say public or
Well,
not.
You can have a closed group and an open.
You can have a closed group and an open group, or a closed group and support people on their public pages. Yeah.
But to get people engaged, you also put money so they appear in people that are
Yeah,
not
I mean,
otherwise.
You want to, if you're advocating for a cause, for instance, like let's think about what Joyce was talking about with automatic voter registration. So, if you have a cause that you want to really partner up with as an indivisible, and you want to make sure that material is getting out to as wide an audience as possible in the state of Massachusetts, the way that you'll be, the optimal way to do that is to really build, frankly, a strategy, a marketing strategy that for social includes a lot of video, and where appropriate for things that are particularly resonant, put money behind it so that it gets put into people's feeds that wouldn't have selected it.
So basically, you're buying an ad on Facebook.
Totally buying an ad.
So they're very cheap.
So get involved. Like and follow the pages of the issues and candidates that you care about so that you always see their posts in your feed and can then comment or share. So once you pick a candidate, once you pick a cause, make sure that on their public page you like it so that you are seeing their posts regularly and can amplify. Don't let those posts go by without commenting. Commenting is gold. Commenting is the easiest thing you can do to help people on social. And if you're sharing, share with a purpose. Add video into your mix, and in particular, as an indivisible picking candidates and causes, advocate for your candidates and causes to get on the video train. And then, help them practice. Practice is huge on this one, especially for candidates. Just give them a place where they can upload videos to that they've been taking of themselves that's totally risk-free, so that you can give them pointers on smile more, smile less. Don't use the word all the time. Help them practice. And then finally, if you want to go to the ninja level on this, there's a far higher ninja level. Come see me, and we can talk about how to pull particularly excited and interested volunteers into working with us as a volunteer to learn how to do things like target posts, help people place boosted posts, which is an ad, which is where you spend money, This is time-intensive stuff for a candidate or for a cause. So the reality is that especially if you're supporting people at the state legislative or municipal level, they don't have somebody on staff doing this, and they don't have a campaign manager who knows how to do this. So there's an incredible amount of value actually that you can unlock for them by being good, by having someone in your indivisible group or a couple of people for whom this is what they love to do. They don't want to phone bank, they don't want to go campus, but man, they'll spend like 2 or 3 hours a day just figuring out somebody's Facebook. There's actually a lot of value on that. There's a huge amount of value. That's it. Hit me up with questions and let me answer your YouTube question. We didn't talk about YouTube. We didn't talk about YouTube because think of YouTube as almost like a TV and a radio replacement at this point. But it's really effective. So if you have a candidate with a lot of money, they should absolutely be taking part of their budget and putting it towards YouTube. But it doesn't work the same way in terms of commenting and threading. It doesn't, because YouTube isn't as recommendation engine oriented yet. And so that's why it doesn't work quite the same way. That being said, when we got a huge influx of money at the very end of the Thompson race because of the Daily Cause announcement, we actually didn't have, we missed the window for TV. And Wichita's not a super expensive TV market, but it's still money. So we put $45,000 into YouTube. And we did it in the last week. And that $45,000 in YouTube garnered James over, I want to say over 200,000 views. And it made a big difference. It definitely was part of the difference. But YouTube is sort of like another layer because it's mostly just targeting and it's just video. It doesn't work with anything else, right? Yeah.
Just 2 questions. One about the YouTube. So there's a difference between YouTube video and a little, couple of videos. Those more professional videos, like those ones for Randy Bryce and those kind of things. And then, but then can't you share that on your Facebook page if it is a YouTube video? You can use that to share.
So we think about videos being 3 different quality levels. There's extraordinarily expensive professional level quality video, like the Randy Bryce biography video that we've all seen, or like Amy McGrath's biography video, which like makes me cry. They're done by professionals. They're incredible. They're expensive. And no state leg candidate is typically going to have one of those unless they get somebody outside who comes in and does it. But those are great. Those are expensive. You're going to have maybe 1 or 2 of those to play with in most races. If that's the only video you feel like you can play with, then game over, right? That's by no means the only video. Second video is something we call kind of like in between super produced and what I think of as documentary style. This is where the candidate's basically sitting down in front of like a webcam or someone's holding the cell phone camera. It's really still. Frankly, with the quality of so many of our cameras now, it doesn't have after effect and post-production, so you know it's not the same as those super expensive videos, but it's not bad. And sometimes the campaign staff, if you have a staff, gets good enough at adding on like layers of images or like just still graphics on those that they look really legit. James Thompson did a bunch of these. Those are the in-between stage. And then the third stage is like what Dawn got really good at, which is I'm holding my cell phone and I'm filming myself. We consider that to be documentary style. The reality is that as you get closer and closer to election day, or if you're advocating for a cause, for instance, and like it's voter registration and there's a deadline for voter registration forms, as you get closer and closer to whatever your deadline is, your video frequency picks up because your call to action frequency picks up. Most of your video in that world is going to be documentary style. That's why practice is so important. I mean, to be very honest with you, Dawn's last video, the one that we think really won her the race, it was easily her best, but it was also she'd had the most practice.
One other question. So when you say have them send you their videos so you can help them, could you explain that a little better?
Dropbox, Google Drive.
Oh, they just send it. So it's not
put them somewhere so that you can watch them.
Okay.
They're not public, and then you can provide feedback. Yeah.
So just in terms of the message of the video itself, so where do you marry? You talked about authenticity being, regardless of the message, right? Body language and so forth. But where does I keep hearing members of Congress telling me through any number of means that I want people's story. They can talk about somebody losing Medicaid or whatever it happens to be. So where is the type of message in terms of attracting eyeballs? You see what I'm saying? Is like talking about themselves, talking about somebody else, talking about an issue?
So it's really going to depend on whether it's really going to depend on the candidate, the race, the cause, it's going to depend on what you're doing the posting for. And it's not the case that more eyeballs is always better eyeballs. So, for example, there may be a particular segment of a district or a particular audience for a cause that you're really passionate about that matters more to you, either because perhaps you need to more radically improve turnout among that particular segment, or they have the ability to donate more money, and so then you create a video that's focused on a message around an issue or a value that you think really matters to them, and then if you've got some ninja level skills, you actually target that particular post to people who are in that interest group that matters to you. And like a great example of this is, we showed how Dawn, so she took the video, she posted it, then she posted it again with a different picture, which still took you the video. And she did this multiple times. Why would she do that multiple times? Simple. Every one of those posts underneath it, in the back end, had a different specific group of human beings that it was being targeted to, and that's where the ad money went to. So one group was targeted on interests like the NAACP, Beyonce, Jay-Z, et cetera, and it had a small different message in terms of the post and what was written, but it was still the basic same content. Go to another post with the same video content, slightly different header, and now it might be targeted specifically towards college-educated women in her district based on specific interests that Facebook holds. Facebook knows so much about all of us guys that when you get into the ninja level stuff, you can get really specific or choose to be really broad about this thing that I'm putting up there. I only want these 5 people to see it, or I want these 5 million people to see it.
Unfortunately, we're gonna
Yeah, that's fine.
there because we're up against the clock, unfortunately. I'm sure Elizabeth is happy to answer more questions.
Totally.
You're going to be at the network, and her contact information,
It's right up
all
there.
over.
Great, you're all set. Good. We can go around there just quickly, raise your hands. What do you want to walk out of here knowing about fundraising that you didn't know before?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. How to develop a list? Cool. What else?
Basics.
The basics. Fundraising 101. Any other burning questions? So how to develop your list and how to just sort of do it. Has anyone?
Fundraising, events, parties.
Parties?
Parties.
Like how to host a fundraising party?
Or like unique approaches, or like different approaches types of.
Yeah. Yes.
How to keep people engaged over the long haul and keep donating money?
Yes, that's a great question. So sort of just the nuts and bolts, and you can read the handout that kind of takes you through things, so I won't read off of that, but just some basic things to remember. People have complicated relationships with money, right? And we don't like asking, we make assumptions about where people are at. Oh, they can't give $100, or why would they give this or that, right? So the most important thing to know is that people give to people. And money is just a resource. People want to, it's a way for them to be committed to something bigger than themselves, and money is one way to do that. Volunteering is another way to do that. But it's all the same. So I just want people to sort of get that money thing of like, I know it's like people get weird about it, but it's really just a way for someone to be part of something bigger than themselves, and that they can give resources to it, and that's okay, right? So people give to people. People give to specifics, and people give to deadlines. There is a reason why in congressional races that 80% of the money comes in right before the 3-month deadline. Everybody knows that June 30th is a deadline. You tell that person, you tell everybody for 3 months that there's a deadline June 30th, and literally 80% of the money comes in like 2 days before the June 30th deadline. And that happens every 3 months. It's actually probably why the FEC made up a deadline every 3 months so that campaigns could actually raise money, because nobody would give it until 2 days before the election day, right? So specifics, deadlines, and people give to people. People are giving money to a candidate because you are asking them to. And yes, they might care about flipping the house, and they might care about climate change, they might care about women's rights. but they are giving because you are saying to them that it's important to you. And they care about you, you have a relationship with them, so they are giving. I call it the pain threshold. People have a pain threshold based on their relationship. If my sister was running for Congress, I would max out $5,400 on a credit card. It would take me 5 years to pay it off, but I would do it. That's my sister. And I would probably beg, borrow, and steal, right? If my neighbor was running for Congress, I don't know his last name, but he let us use his shovel once, so I would give him like a couple $100, right? Because the pain of saying no to someone has to be greater than the pain of writing a check. So if my neighbor asked me for $1,000, I would say no. Because that $1,000 would be more painful for me to give over to somebody than to actually like, you know, write the check. So think about that in your relationships to people when you're asking for money. And that's really what fundraising is, right?
Can you talk about just that, the amount that you found works well for an in-state candidate, a local candidate, an out-of-state candidate? As we set our fundraising like minimum ask, it was really hard for us to judge what we deemed appropriate for like an out-of-state race.
So the challenge is, that's not how I would think about it. It's about your connection to people, and you could, and I would tier things. So people who are especially new to political giving, you know, we all know we give to our churches and our synagogues or to the Red Cross, United Way. People have sort of frames in their mind, but it's really important to provide context for people about what it costs to candidate, you know, $5,400, $2,700 for congressional, and like frame it for people. And then I would have a tier. You can say, you know, because there's just not going to be one number that works for everybody. And part of it is, and that's why you have people, so you could do, I would have a minimum of like a ticket price for an event, and then I would have a co-host level. So you could have, everyone can kind of figure out where they fit, because everyone has different comfort levels with what they're giving. And, you know, I can get people to write checks for in-state and out-of-state. It's really about the relationship of who they are to me and why I'm asking. So it's a little tricky there. I don't think there's one blanket amount.
So we had held a fundraiser, and it was, people surprised me. We set a minimum price, and then we had a low 2017 for young people who could afford anything. So like we limited that to 15 people. And some people surprised me that didn't have a close relationship with me, but had a lot of money. So you never know that. Like they might be very wealthy, and they give $250 donations, and where, you know, they don't know what's really asking, especially.
Right, and that's the other thing about, don't make assumptions about where people are at. A lot of people, like candidates, will do that. They'll say, oh, I feel bad asking them for that amount. And I was like, you don't know, like, right, like what they can and cannot do. And so I think that's right. So you will get those people that just give. And so for events are really about math, and it's about how do you bring people together. It's just like organizing a house party for volunteers is the same thing, right? And so if you want to raise $10,000 for an event, it's just breaking down the math, and there's a million ways to like split the baby, right? So you could do 10 co-hosts that each commit to raising $1,000. You could do 20 co-hosts that are each committed to raising $500. They can write or raise. And then you just figure out, okay, so that's how you get to your 10,000. And then that means I'm gonna invite, you know, if I'm committed to raising $500, I'm gonna invite 10 people at $50. Or I'm gonna invite 5 people at $100. And so you can sort of figure out with your group of people what makes the most sense, and every event can be different. We just did an event for Juana Matias as one of our candidates we're supporting, and we had an event in Concord for 50 people. We raised $5,000 because it was a grassroots event. We just, you know, we didn't want to, it wasn't going to be a $25,000 event, you know. But when Seth Moulton, you know, did an event for 12 candidates, we raised $600,000 because it was a money event. Like they were coming in town, like we had to raise money for each candidate got 50 grand or 45 grand, right?
Can you tell us just a little bit about how you did that event? That would be very helpful.
Yeah. So we did math. So it is about the math, right? So I had this like secret goal of $500,000. But I told people 300,000. So we managed expectations externally and internally. But we decided that if you wanted to be a co-host, you had to max, which was $64,000, which meant you wrote a $5,400 check to every candidate that Seth was supporting. There were 12 candidates. So we went after people, and we said, and we had made it accessible, so like you could give $100 and come to the event. But we sort of did tiers, and we said, you know, if you give 10 grand, you're this. If you give 5 grand, you're this. If you give 25 grand, you're this. $64,000, you're this. And then we kind of looked at who has the capacity to do these things, and then we just went for it. And I'm like, I know that you could write a check for $64,000. I know that's not the most fun thing you want to do, but you will not go bankrupt if you write that check. Would you write that check, right? So we just asked people, and we just got a collective, everyone kind of gave, and then we raised that money collectively. So it's about meeting people where they are financially, making sure that it's inclusive so everyone feels like they can come and they can be involved in something. And you don't have to, and it's not intimidating for people, so like $100 or $50 is still great. But if the overall event, we had people write checks that didn't show up at the event, that's fine. It meant that we could just invite a bunch of people, who would give lower dollars and still have access to and be part of it. And so that's just how I think about when I fundraise. Lists. So everyone, you have more power than you think you have. And it's really about thinking about, I wouldn't think about your list as who's political and who's not, because you're asking. And so it's like, who are the people in your world that would do something because you're asking? And so you should just go through your life map. If you're a candidate, I would tell you, you would go through your life map. Your high school friends, your college friends, your work friends, your church friends, your synagogue friends, whatever, the circles of your life. And really think about the people, because there are a bunch of people that you are not thinking about. Because there's probably 20 people that we talk to regularly in our lives. And there's a whole bunch of people that you know and have relationships with, but you just don't have them in a daily orbit. So you're going to forget about that. So it's really about deliberately thinking about who in your life that you could invite or ask for resources for something that you care about and that you're supporting. So that's how I think about the list. And then just sending them a note and saying, this is something I care about, this is a candidate I care about, this is why I'm supporting this candidate. Would you be willing to give $100 or $200 or whatever the amount is? But given a personal ask, it's people to people.
By personal, you mean phone, email?
You can do phone, email, whatever way. Sometimes texting for me is better for my network, right? So whatever way works best, handwritten letter, it depends on your network.
Would it always be a candidate that the person who is giving the money, they would represent them, like somebody in their district, or if say I wanted to support a candidate, I wanted to raise money for somebody in a certain district.
Sure.
Should I only ask people to give money? No.
No.
Oh, okay. I was kind of getting that message when you were talking.
No, you should ask anyone who knows you.
Okay, so it's about you.
It's about you. You're the raiser.
All right.
So it's anyone you know. I ask people who live all over the country to support people in different, that's not connected at all to their district. Because I care about the person. And so I'm not going to not be friends with them because they say no, but you have to ask. And you can't be afraid of rejection. I get rejected all the time.
I was to say, I just did my first fundraiser last month, and I had that same question, like, which of my friends can I invite that aren't? And when I sent out the blanket emails, like, my political friends said they would come, but everybody else would just ignore it. And everyone gets so much now, and they know that I'm into politics. But when I would see them at the bus stop and say, "You're coming to the party tonight?" all of a sudden, people you never heard from were coming. So I think that was like my lesson.
Yeah.
It's way more important to put the time into the one-on-one invitations, whether it's text or email or in person, because then people, it's not, they didn't care about the cause anymore than they did before I asked, but they didn't want to
disappoint you. It's the pain of saying no, right? We feel that pain.
Your point of the list is that they're personal.
They're personal.
Yeah.
There's no magic donor, national donor base out there. I mean, there are Democratic donors, but there's this myth that they fund the entire candidate pool. That's not true. Very few of them give across the country to a bunch of candidates. It is about, people's networks.
It's about secondary stuff, for example, friends.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can say, would you invite 3 people that you think would be interested in this and bring them, and then they'll get. Absolutely. It's all about it's a network effect. It's like Amway.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what about business type associates? Is that not off limits? Is that
No one's off limits.
Even though they work for a nonprofit and can you ask them about political stuff?
You can. I mean, it's honestly what's your personal comfort level.
Yeah.
But nonprofit people can give politically. They just have to do that on their own time. So I wouldn't email their nonprofit email work. I would just, but yeah. I mean,
work and ask them.
Yeah, I ask nonprofit people all the time. Yeah.
And I want to say that, we're all part of indivisible groups. We have a natural community built in. I did my first fundraiser, and most of the people that were showing up, I moved to Lexington last September. I knew very, very few people in my community who I could invite to the fundraiser personally, but we had a successful fundraiser because everybody in the Indivisible group knew about it, and they had been working with our elections team, and we all wanted it to succeed. So, we have a natural community here.
Sure.
Question, is there like a statewide database of everybody in Indivisible?
We're working on not necessarily of every single member, but we now have a good list of at least all the group leaders that have come out from the conference, so.
Yeah.
Well, I try with my personal list, and I'm not very successful because everybody says, my email list is so, not mine, theirs, is so uncontrollable that they delete 90% of it. And they have so many things nowadays, not only candidates to donate to all across the country at the state and national level, but also issue-based stuff as well, because everything's under attack. So everybody's fundraising, I mean, in every single, as you know.
Yeah.
So I guess
You're saying invite them one by one.
Yeah.
Keep sending emails individually.
Don't send mass emails.
Yeah.
I call people.
It's up close and personal.
It's all about the personal ask.
Or even send like a letter, a paper invitation.
Yeah, I think paper letter's great.
Like if there's a fundraising party or something.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of planning.
I was gonna say, and you usually tie it to an event, a party.
Yes, I find that the most helpful. It's hard to get people to give without an event, I think. So I think when you reach out to campaigns or there's candidates who want to support and they're coming, I mean, Boston, everyone comes here, so that's a good thing. And so just thinking about that and coordinating scheduling, logistics, and I will say that in sort of the step-by-step process I laid out, but yeah, I mean, that's, it's important.
We also had, at our fundraiser, we had like out-of-state candidate call-in, like we did the Skype session. And I thought that was really compelling to get people to give more at the end of the night, just like that personal message.
Right.
For people who maybe weren't that excited about the cause, but they left more excited about it, so.
The candidate wasn't there.
The candidate wasn't there, but he called in.
Yeah,
and
that is
That
helpful.
was really helpful.
So do you find your donors give to multiple candidates? Like your event and conference with one of the TS? Rough cut of gathering that was $200 a head, 50 people. So, 50 people. So those folks will probably get to multiple.
I can't hear you.
So the people in the room in the Concord event I had the example of, they don't give to multiple candidates, and they are new to politics, all of them. I mean, they had not been involved in politics before. And we did a Concord event for Juana Matias, who's running for Congress in the 3rd district. So the 50 people that showed up weren't political givers or donors before. That was their first time. And so it is possible, and you can sort of bring new people in. They just need more, a little more education around the process.
Can you just speak to 1 minute about some basic rules? I know I was shocked to find out that we couldn't, for instance, hold a fundraiser at a restaurant of somebody who owned the restaurant, but it was going to be considered an in-kind donation.
But you can do that. So the rules of, and again, this is where the campaign will sort of help you, but if you host something in a house, there's a $2,000 rule where you can spend up to $2,000 on the events, and it will not count towards your contribution.
Is that in Massachusetts?
It's federal.
Federal.
These are federal laws. You can host a event at a restaurant and a bar, and in fact, a lot of campaigns do that. They would probably do cash bar to cut down the cost. The campaign would just have to pay for the apps, or the restaurant owner would just in-kind it, and it would count as an in-kind contribution. So you absolutely can do that.
Okay, but they have to count it as an in-kind.
Yeah, they have to pay for but campaigns it's fine. The campaigns are used to doing that.
But then you record that?
It gets reported on the FEC report, yeah. But not everyone has a home that they can host people in, and so campaigns are used to doing both, and that's totally okay. Like, you can absolutely do that.
So I don't live in Massachusetts, but we ran a fundraiser in New York, and we had a venue.
Yeah.
And the way we had to do it in order to get paid for it, was they were a subsidy bar tab out of the donation.
Yep.
So then we had 100 people, 120 people donating money of different amounts to 6 candidates, and we were trying to figure out how to comply with the campaign finance rules. So all the money got sent to us through brown paper tickets, It was very tricky. Do you have a recommendation for how to do that, like how to collect the money without running afoul of the campaign finance rules for like a big fundraiser like that? I know you can go through Act Blue, but then you can't really do a nice invitation for that.
Yeah, and they,
It's
yeah.
from a big-
I would set up a joint fundraising committee for that,
So you
but
have
it's
to set up a
complicated.
committee, and then you have to work with the campaign treasurer on that.
Yeah,
right?
but what, someone has that. I
Well, if
mean,
you're working with 6 campaigns, it was very tricky. But
yes, that,
6 Virginia campaigns, it was super tricky, but.
oh,
yeah.
not federal.
No,
State
there was
ledge,
state legislature.
that's a whole nother set of rules.
Yeah, okay.
That's
But if
complicated.
you're running for Congress, you're under the federal rules?
Yes. But
No.
it's tricky to do a multi-candidate event, but we can talk offline about that.
Okay.
What do you think about silent auctions as a way to raise money?
It's not legal. You can't do it.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Oh, well, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It just, yeah.
Not legal federally? Or?
Definitely federally, in my sense, it's not legal actually doing it anywhere. Yeah.
So how do the, kind of the sources of money change over the life of the campaign? So for example, I think it was Richard Rose where that Bernie's kind of grassroots fundraising didn't kick in until late in the campaign. So does it shift from, for example, personal to grassroots? What's your sense of how that evolves over a 10-month cycle?
Yeah, so every campaign's different, and the presidential is like apples and oranges compared to like anything else. I just want to caveat that. Like what happened in Bernie doesn't always translate into like federal and local elections as much. So when a candidate raises money, the first thing they do is ask everyone they know to help them. So it's like their personal networks. And then you grow out from there. You get your, what I call second generation raisers, third generation raisers, so like the Amway model we talked about. So by the middle towards the end of the campaign, people that they did not know before they started running are helping them raise money and do events and are part of sort of their community. So, yeah. What's the time?
Yeah, I think we're about needing to wrap things up. So maybe one more question, if it's a quick one.
Yeah, this was a really, maybe it's not quick, I don't know, but it's a broad question of what type of events, because we've talked about a lot of different types of events to have. What are the most successful types of events that you can host? Or that you can, you know, maybe you have a more professional consulting firm, or people that can organize events, which events work.
The most successful events are the ones that bring in the money that they said they'd bring in. So it can, there's no one right way to do this. It's literally, it can be a small event with like high dollar donors that 5 people can raise 10,000, or it can be, you know, 75 people also raising 10,000, right? So it's a hard question to answer because there's no magic bullet solution to sort of fundraising, which I think is great because it just is really about what works best for you as the raiser and how you're leveraging your networks. What were you hoping for? That you don't seem satisfied.
No, I was just wondering if generally, because we've talked about, you know, hosting a dinner or hosting something more interactive or something of that nature. So do you find the events that are more casual, maybe it's just dinner and drinks, or the events that might have something associated with them? I know back home that sometimes they have events for watch parties for different things that have cultural importance in the state, or something that's more active, like some sort of shared event, or something that's more enticing perhaps, or unique to get people to come?
I think the more people interact with the candidate, the more they give.
Okay.
So I think bigger events are more low dollar because you don't get to like actually hang out with the candidate as opposed to like you get to spend an hour with like 12 people really talking to a candidate. I tend to find people write higher checks. But that's only, I would only do that if you can deliver that kind of money for a candidate that's out of state coming in. Cool. Thanks you guys.
Is it usually after they've talked to the candidate, they write the check?
There should be an expectation. You should know what kind of money's coming in the door before you do the event. Yeah. Thanks you guys.
Thank you, Emily. And thanks all of you guys.
Thank you.